This is Mixlock Production.
A very wonderful afternoon to you and welcome to the program Money Talk. On Money Talk today we will be looking at what Nigeria stands to gain if there is proper and critical investment in the aviation sector. The program again is Money Talk, and you can join the conversation on our social media platform, on our Twitter handle. You can also join the conversation on Facebook and send us an email through our email that will be displayed on your screen, and you're welcome again to the program. On the program today, I have in the studio one of Nigeria's best, one of Nigeria's finest when it comes to the aviation sector and the aviation business, and I'm talking about no less a person than Mr. Godi Ike. Welcome to the program this afternoon.
Oh, thank you, Gabriel. How are you today?
I'm good.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Welcome to the program.
Yeah.
So let's just have a preamble of what the aviation sector in Nigeria looks like. Currently, altogether in Africa, we have 731 airports and 419 airlines with an aviation industry that supports around 6.9 million jobs and 80 billion US dollars in economic activities. Out of all these, Nigeria has about 400 pilots who are unemployed, despite spending so much to train them in expensive schools in Nigeria and around the world. And we know from experience, according to experts, that each airplane, functional aircraft on the air can keep about 50 workers active. Each one can keep about 50 workers active. And then we also have countries in Africa that are doing perfectly well in the aviation sector. They have their national carriers. We have South Africa, we have Egypt, and then we have Kenya, we have Ethiopia. All of them are doing perfectly well. As it stands, Nigeria has no national carrier. Even the process that was to bring one, had a problem at a point in time, so they had to call it off. For now, we don't have any airlines. But we have other private airlines operating in the country, like ARIC, like Aero Contractors, and a whole lot of them. So today we'll be looking at what does Nigeria stand to gain economically if the proper investment is made in that sector by the government in terms of infrastructure, making sure we have state-of-the-art facilities when it comes to airport facilities so that we can generate so much revenue from that sector. And Mr. Godike, just for a start, where does Nigeria stand when it comes to aviation business? Are we using our potentials rightly, judging from our population?
If you want my answer very directly, my answer is no. We haven't scratched the surface at all.
Okay.
There's so much to do, and sometimes it's more difficult for those of us who are knowledgeable in that field and who are deep researchers in the area. You feel better when you're ignorant. And you really don't know what's going on around you.
So you don't have to bother at all.
You don't have to bother. If Nigerians were to know the burden some of us bear, when you look at all the opportunities available and when you think about all the possibilities and things that can easily be done if we were to set out to do them sincerely, your heart breaks. Sometimes, I'll tell you the truth, sometimes my wife stares at me when I begin to mumble under my breath and discussing, why is it that we're not able to get this done or that done? And she says to me, darling, please, leave a little longer for me. Can you leave your worries for this nation? Can you leave those worries alone? She occasionally catches me really thinking it through, and I'm wondering why we are the way we are in this nation. It breaks my heart. And so the answer is No, we haven't scratched the surface. There's so much to do, so much.
Okay, now let's talk about the major, countries, doing aviation business in Africa. Like I mentioned, those big earners. We have South Africa earning. This data is these figures are according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. It says South Africa earns about 136.8 billion US dollars from that sector. Egypt follows closely with 102.3 billion dollars. Nigeria only has 94.2 billion dollars, and then followed by Morocco 54.8 billion dollars, and Angola 49.5 billion dollars. Just a paltry 94 billion dollars for a country of over 200 million people. Are we even doing enough? Shouldn't we be more than here? Shouldn't we go higher than this?
We are supposed to be the largest in Africa, and our revenue generation in the field of aviation is supposed to be the largest.
Okay.
There's no other way to explain why we haven't gotten close to the largest. Other than that, we seem to be too laid back, and it would seem as well that our laws are not bearing down on those who are misbehaving when they are saddled with the responsibility of giving services, public services to this nation. People do whatever they like, get away with them, and the chapter closed, and we open yet another ugly chapter, and people get into those kind of positions.
Okay, I'm going to just read something here for you and allow you to comment. If you're following the school of thought of those who believe that there should be a local content law in Nigeria, and a local content law, according to the proponents, said it will make it mandatory for all foreign airline operating in Nigeria to have a Nigerian pilot and a cabin crew on its staff. Would therefore go a long way to creating new jobs for Nigerian professionals and also cutting down some of the capital flight linked to foreign airliners. It also says that there must also be a law that abolishes the hiring of expatriates by private airline operators to position that can be filled by Nigerians. Now, do you support that there should be a law, a local content law that give Nigerians privileges, to occupy positions that are occupied by foreigners in the nation?
As a matter of fact, if you ask me, Gabriel, that is the beginning and end of governance. Governance is about selfish desire to fix your nation and make your nation the best it can be in the community of nations in the world. Haven't you noticed? Very often you find American presidents, and currently we're talking about President Trump, always either in China or the Chinese one in Washington, discussing trade issues, imposing taxes, and struggling with each other, and virtually like two boxers in a ring.
And the statement is America first.
And that statement, America first. Can we have somebody for once saying to the world, Nigeria first? The skies won't fall down. They just won't fall down. The people of the world will only respect what you stand for and learn to key in. You see, we do not seem to appreciate what we have in the natural and human resources that God gave us free of charge.
Yeah.
We don't appreciate it. If we do, we should be the one telling the world, Nigeria first. So, answering your question again, yes, we need a local content law. There's absolutely no reason we should have up to 400 pilots
unemployed,
doing nothing. when aviation schools around the world are busy churning out new pilots every day and having, largely inexperienced, first officers in the name of, co-pilots, flying intercontinental with, in company of very highly experienced ones. Remember, let me remind you, during, that was in 2009, when the French Air France was traveling from Brazil to Paris and had some issues that had to do with stall. And that plane ended up falling into the Atlantic and slaughtering over 300 people. The pilots there were a very highly experienced captain and a very young, inexperienced co-pilot. And as a matter of fact, it was the presence of that co-pilot in that cockpit that led to that crash. Because if the experienced captain, who had taken a little break to ease himself and walked out of the cockpit and left the control in the hands of the younger one, if he had been on seat, that crash probably would not have taken place because he would have known what to do at that point. It was at a time that the young pilot should have been struggling to bring down the nose of his airplane in order to reduce the high angle of attack that ice had forced the plane to get into, and he was busy losing airspeed and getting towards a stall situation. By the time his captain came in, struggled from the bathroom where he went to ease himself and came in. They had stalled and began to descend. To descend. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to bring out is, if such huge airliners are using those kind of young, inexperienced pilots, why would highly trained and experienced pilots? I had told you on my regular weekly aviation program in this studio that Nigeria Airways pilots were once regarded as the best in the world.
Okay. You say once regarded as the best in the world. I was coming to the issue of expertise. Do we really have the expertise, to be engaged on these airplanes? But I'll allow you to answer that question. Just when I read this short research I have, I said Nigeria has over 20 airports and many regulated airstrips and heliports, 23 active domestic airlines, 554 licensed pilots, 913 licensed engineers, and 1,700 cabin personnel.
Yes.
That is the capacity of Nigeria. So is it enough to just say, let's get Nigeria to fill some position rising from a law, or we should be looking at the area of expertise? In other words, do we have the expertise needed?
What you must know is that Nigerians are very skillful people. What we are suffering from in this country is systemic problem. Otherwise, Nigerians in all sectors, not just aviation, Nigerians are very skillful. If you get to most of the big hospitals in the United States of America, the big consultants in there
are Nigerians.
As a matter of fact, I have a sister-in-law as one of them in Massachusetts. I say, my sister-in-law, she's one of those respected, huge medical personnel that you have, Nigerian medical personnel you have in the United States of America. At the time, before he retired, my immediate elder brother was working for NASA as an engineer. He just retired not too long ago, and his retirement was not just as a matter of being due for retirement, but it was health related, and so he wasn't fit to be in that kind of a very sensitive place. NASA, National Aeronautic and Space Administration, who would believe that a Nigerian engineer was one of those that were recognized and given recognition, certificate for correcting what led to the. Do you remember when Challenger, the spacecraft that exploded as it was taking off? The Challenger. I'm trying to remember the year that happened. You remember that? Due to the seal problem that they had on the booster rocket that was sending the Challenger into the space. And I want to tell you very proudly, my immediate elder brother, Engineer Louis, they call him Ike, but you know our name is Ike. Engineer Louis Ike, in the way they call him in the U.S., was one of those that found solution to that problem and got recognized. If I knew you were going to go this way and ask me this question, I would have brought the photograph here to display, to our team Nigerians to see. What am I trying to say to you? I'm trying to say to you that Nigerians are naturally very skillful people. When they leave the shores of this nation and go out there, they excel. My own son is a respected cardiologist, first class.
So
my own son.
So in essence, we have all the expertise.
Yeah.
We have all the expertise that we require in Nigeria.
That's correct.
So okay, let's quickly talk about infrastructure.
Okay.
Do we have the necessary, the needed infrastructure
we don't.
Make Nigeria an African hub? And what does it take to do that?
The answer is capital. No, we don't have enough facilities. Remember in the past 3 weeks. Remember in the past 3 weeks, on my aviation program, if you remember, I carried out a series that I titled as Refocusing the Transportation Sector in 2019 in order to keep Nigeria truly one. You remember that title? As a matter of fact, I just rounded it up last week with looking at the maritime sector, and I made it clear when I was doing the aviation sector portion of that title. I made it clear that we need as a nation to invest heavily and develop international world standard and you're going to ask me what soon, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. The meaning of world standard international airports in different locations. It's not funny and doesn't make any sense that a Nigerian leaves Sokoto to come to Abuja in order to travel out of Nigeria, or leaves Maiduguri to go to Lagos in order to travel out. It simply presents us to the world as an unserious bunch of people and the laughing stock of the world, with all the mega oil dollars that this country has earned over the years. We are just not doing as well as we should.
Now, government is talking about diversification everywhere.
Yes,
what potential does that sector, the aviation sector, stands to contribute to Nigeria?
Okay, first of all, let me tell you. First of all, let me tell you, when you talk about international standard airport, airports are no more just places where you fly out and fly in. Airports have become huge marketplaces. When you hear huge, the best place you can have, the best, 7-star hotel, the best place you can have all the supermarkets, the best place you can have all the foreign exchange dealers in very respectable, cozy cubicles. Not the kind of madness that we have. Have you been to the airport recently? Yeah. To see people that have no business being there, milling around and accosting people as they are going about their business. Oh, exchange money, and all those kind of things. And I don't blame them. We didn't set up the infrastructure to make them more civilized. It's not their fault. I'm not saying that those people who are doing that, they are doing the best out of a bad situation, if you ask me. But I am saying, if we were thinking well and we put all the infrastructure in place, those men there, mostly men, because I've not seen any women. I mean, or rather, any woman in their midst. They would be tucked away in their various allocated cubicles where they won't have to bug anybody coming into the airport or leaving the airport. Already those coming in and leaving would have known via, posting of plaques and adverts. And should you want to change money
exactly,
and you want
where
to be
they're
safe,
going to.
and you want to be safe and do it nicely.
In essence,
in
essence, you're saying
Yeah.
the development in our airports
Our
as a business leads to the growth of other sectors.
That's correct.
Like tourism.
That's correct.
Like
all our
departmental
airports
stores.
are big jokes. All of them. Even the ones that we consider to be the best of
Like the
Abuja and Murtala
MI1
Mohammed,
and 2.
they are still big jokes. When you go, I mean, make a trip to Dubai, for instance, that just came on not how many years ago.
But it had the right investment.
Oh yes.
And doing the right thing.
And doing the right thing.
So it has
and
become
the
a
whole
foreign
world is
entertainer.
trooping in there. And as a matter of fact, if you get to, for instance, if you get to Dubai airport, you don't even want to get home. And if need be, you don't need to go home. Everything you need is there. You want Chinese restaurant, you've got the best in there. You want in Indian cuisine, you got the best. You want, I don't know if somebody has been smart enough to go there and set up something about for Nigeria and African cuisine. I haven't checked that out, but I'm talking about those that I've checked out in that airport. It's a massive, huge marketplace. And so if you put all this infrastructure in place, you put people under control, you don't find people milling around just like you.
We won't be talking about $92 billion a year. We're talking about much more.
Much more. And then the big irony, and the one that also breaks my heart, is when we call the money that we spend to have some of these things established, they break my head, because for sometimes a fifth or tenth of the same amount of money, other people are building much better terminals around the world. Still, we have an issue here. Corruption is also part of the issue we have, and we must. I've said this severally in this studio. We must put corruption to death.
Okay.
Corruption must be put to death in this country if we must make a headway with some of our investment activities.
We must put corruption to death, and Mr. Godike has described, the airports as a huge and massive business, and that means there is a connection, there is a chain from the development of airports to every other sector, like tourism and other sectors that we open. Time is not our friend, and we will call this part one of this program, and we will bring another part again to you where we'll discuss what infrastructure should be brought into the airport to enable Nigeria earn money away from oil. We talk about 98% of our earning from oil. We do really need another means to generate revenue for the country.
Gabriel, let me make you a promise. Let me make you a promise, and of course to our TV viewers.
Just in 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, because this program took me unawares, and I had to answer your call and be here. It's not one of the regular ones, but now that you have named this one part one, and we're coming to part two, I urge my viewers, please stand by on Tuesday, same time next week. It's going to be awesome. I will get you clips of everything that we need to know and we need to do. All that's available. It's supposed to be a consultancy that can earn us money.
Okay.
But we're always willing
we are doing that for the love of the nation,
for the love of the nation,
the interest of patriotism.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Mr. Godike, for being on the program today. Thank you for spending your time with us and for giving us your words of experience. Time is no longer our friend. The conversation continues hereafter, and a part two of the program, just as I said, will come your way next week, Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Stay glued to ITV. I am Gabriel Kuma. The program you just finished watching is Money Talk. Do have a lovely afternoon.